Hello and welcome to the Four Corners. I was hoping to get you doing that, Chad. Hello and welcome to the Four Corners podcast. I'm Brad, joined as always by Matt and Shad. Gentlemen, has default.
OBS sometimes changes.
There we go. Ask them if they can hear you now.
Hello, everyone! Are we done with our technical difficulties yet? I would sure love to know if you are able to hear me through that stream.
It's never done that before. They should be able to hear you because...
Say his name and he appears. I believe in Matt.
Was there any audio from you guys at all through this?
Okay, I got a message they can hear me.
Matt hasn't talked.
How about me? I wasn't saying anything. I haven't said anything.
If they can hear Shad, they have to be able to hear Matt because...
Whoa. Okay.
Can you hear me, please? Oh, what happened?
I'm sorry, that was something on my end that popped up. It's a notification that came through. Please tell us, can you hear Matt? Please tell us.
I'm talking now. Can people hear me? I need real time.
I'm waiting to hear
feedback from someone. Is there a delay?
Well, I mean,
there's like a 20. There's like a 20-second. We'll just go. If they can hear Shad, they can hear Matt because you guys.
Now you are audible.
Now we figured out modern technology.
Let me tell you something, brother. Youngest men in the world. Youngest men in the world.
I've never had it do that before.
Yeah. After I thought about it a moment, I had.
At least it didn't eat the audio like our.
No, this will.
Our
yeah.
Forgotten, lost and forgotten.
That's the good part about having a live audience is they can catch this stuff. Okay.
Yeah, well, the concern is going to be let's not put that out as the podcast rebroadcast thing.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll probably private this and then re-upload it with the recording from OBS, which I think should be okay. Well, Fair enough. That might be. Well, I'll figure it out. Okay, so let's restart the question since there seems to be issues. So this is going to be what is the first great match you ever saw live? So I said my first one since I started in 97. It's first pay-per-view I ever got, which was Halloween Havoc 97, which was Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero, the mask versus title match. So that would be mine.
That's a pretty
great one.
Yeah.
That's strong. Chad, did you put yours? I can get mine.
I'm not going to be able to tell you one specifically because I didn't get to watch pay-per-views. So given the era when I started watching that early NWO Nitro era, what I had said was somewhere at the top of the cruiserweight card, because I think the top of the cruiserweight division at the time was Malenko, Ultimo Dragon, Rey Mysterio, and now I'm blanking on who the fourth person was. Malenko, Dragon, Mysterio. Oh my God. There were four of them. I had four of them, and now I can't remember who. In any of
Eddie Mysterio. Okay.
Eddie Guerrero. Yeah. And so just any combination of them, I'm sure they just had utter bangers on Nitro that would have, been fantastic. That would have fit the bill. I just can't give you a specific one.
Well, I think my audio never got through, but I was saying that I'm a little bit older than you guys, and I started watching like 5-ish years before you guys. And when I started watching like late 92, both the WWF and the WCW were kind of like on the downward swing a little bit, so there wasn't really a lot of great stuff happening like in those promotions for like a little bit. So there wasn't like a ton that when I was watching contemporaneously, but I did see stuff through like whatever I would rent at the video store. And ironically, since it was mentioned, I think I could renting stuff old at that point, really like WWF pay-per-views, because there wasn't like a lot of WCW stuff out there. There was some, but there really wasn't a ton that my video stores had. I always would covet that because like it was almost rare. So I would definitely like watch any of that stuff, especially since I was like really into WCW. But point is like I probably would say like from stuff that I rented, maybe Savage Warrior from Mania 7. That was probably like it, and it's been so many years since I've seen it. I'd actually have to watch it again. I know
You'd have
friend of
Savage
show.
Steamboat.
I liked it, but I don't know that I liked it as much as I did like when I was older, like more experienced wrestling fan. If you ask me which is better, I probably would say that's better, but I haven't seen Warrior Savage in so long, and Warrior Savage is probably better at telling like a story, even though there was a story behind Savage.
I would say like Savage Warrior I consider to be like the absolute pinnacle of like the WWE style.
That's fair. I mean, friend of the show, Damian Gonzalez, the Dames, he has said before, it's like if for people who are like not into wrestling, like show them that match, and the story of that match along with like the drama of it will get people into it. But I almost hesitate that because like I thought about this in the last couple of days because there are people obviously raving about the modern day WWE product, and it's like, you know what, like the modern day product, like it is kind of, it's really just like the evolution and the distillation of the WWF/E style, and it's like stuff that I liked as a kid, like Savage Warrior. I still like it, but I feel like modern WWE is that, but like cranked up to like 500, where it is more about the cinema of it, and it's like, you look, guys, it's just like community theater drama.
Yeah,
and that's what most drama and everything in wrestling. It's the drama should really be more from like the quasi athletic competition, like fake sport type of thing, and getting that across. Versus, I mean, I'm getting sidetracked here, but like something like Swerve Hangman, their feud from like the last year is in my opinion exponentially better than anything that they have done in the 3+ years of Bloodline. Exponentially better.
Yeah,
I think
it has way more drama, way more like intensity, way more like you feel that these two guys, who I'm sure behind the scenes obviously must like one another. Maybe they're friends in real life. Certainly they respect the hell out of each other, because they wouldn't have done the spots that they did to put the trust in each other, because things could have gone so sideways 100 different times in the matches they've done, that they must be on a different page, and they have, no pun intended, and they have basically formed kind of like a generational iconic like feud. Like years from now, like 10+ years from now, people will look back at this and be like, wow, like that's I mean, it's big to say like Rock Austin, but I mean, people think of it in that way where it's like iconic, like an iconic type of thing.
I think my
Warrior
problem
Savage
is with the modern WWE stuff, especially the Bloodline stuff, is like they've fallen into like the All Japan late 90s trap, where like all of their big like main events go like 35 minutes, so you don't give a crap for the first 20 minutes. Like I think that's where they've gone wrong.
Well, let me, I can just sit on my hands, because I know it's not going to end until like 30 minutes in. So,
and I just don't
bother.
I just don't like I've had bouts in the last decade where I've liked the in-ring in WWE, but like I don't know what it's been like since COVID. Like I just haven't like cared for how they approach the in-ring at all.
So
I've said before. I'm so sorry, Shaq. Go ahead.
The thing that gets me about modern WWE stuff is kind of in general, at least in North America, the floor for what's good wrestling is higher than it used to be.
Oh, a lot higher. Not like, even like close to.
Yeah. So the floor is way higher. And knowing that, like, they have people on the roster I like, but a lot of the stuff that they end up doing, I don't like the how they're doing it. And you combine that with a bunch of stuff that ties in with the company. Yes, for example, the production is better than it used to be because we don't have dumbass things like the camera bouncing up and down while somebody's swinging a chair, dumb shit like that. But you have, first of all, the camera work's still not great. No. Second, the proclivity of, how can I best put this? You have guys who are very much encouraged to have, maybe this used to be the case. Maybe it's not anymore. Maybe that's changed and I'm not aware of it. And you know what? If that's the case, fine, I'm wrong. But it seemed to me that for 20 years, there was this insistence or tendency to fall into having a formulaic moveset where, okay, now we're doing this. All right, now the heel's on heat. The heel does these things. You can almost lay okay, now we've got the comeback. The face is going to do these same spots. And it was like, that always happened. And so you have this very homogenized ring style, but with people who are capable of great work, and some of them can rise above that too. And some of they all can rise above it, and some of them regularly do. But when that's the kind of thing that you commonly see on TV, it bores the hell out of me. And it's for people I like seeing the Hurricane on TV. I liked the Hurricane. But then it's like, oh, this is the point in the match where he does his version of the Shining Wizard. There he does. He did his version of the Shining Wizard. All right, and
I kind of wonder if so much of their roster coming from like FCW and NXT has made it worse, because I think that's where I kind of I think I've lost interest, is everyone wrestles the same there now. And I think that's where I've lost more interest, because there was a time, like, I think what you said was always an issue with it, but there was that solid point, I think, from like 2012 to like 2018, where you had like a very disparate group of people that came up in different eras with different experience levels. A lot of guys that, didn't go through the system. So like you got a good variety of stuff. Like AJ Styles didn't wrestle like anyone else. Like Joe didn't wrestle like anyone else. They had an identity. Like Rusev didn't wrestle like anyone else. And I think they've lost a lot of that over time. And I think especially with like some of the Triple H like hiring sprees, like he does not appreciate, he does not have a good eye for talent on his own. Like, I think it's kind of funny that everyone bitched and moaned about like Vince sabotaging all of his NXT guys, and then all the guys he brought back, Vince was right about.
I wouldn't put it necessarily on their training. I would put it on whoever is doing the agent stuff for that. And of course, the agents are getting edicts from above them about this sort of stuff. But I'm sorry, Matt, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, I've many times said on this show that even though I hated like the direction and the kind of like booking of the WWE, I could always be like, well, at least like in any given point, like the in-ring, at least for like the pay-per-views, is going to be good. When they actually have time, it's not just like a 3-minute match on Raw or whatever. But the in-ring was good, and I feel like the in-ring is not near the quality it was, and that's, I think, twofold. One, it's like the guys who were really good and are still like some level of good, but who may have been like great, best in the world, like they're older now, like they've aged. Like we talked about him before recently, even. Like, who you think is better, AJ or Samoa Joe? And I think I said AJ. I think AJ. I love AJ. He's like a personal fave of mine. in the last like 20 years. But he's older now. He's like mid-40s, and like he still, I think, is a good worker, but it's like he's had injuries, he's slowed down, etc. And that's fine. But
you don't have the
who were
same
great,
investment when they visually like lost a
yeah,
step.
guys who were great have slowed down. I think he by the WWE people has been greatly overrated, but I have thought like Seth Rollins is a good worker. Maybe when he was older, you could even say there are points he may have been a great worker. He's at no point was ever better than Kenny Omega or many other people, and probably would not have. He probably in different places, like even in AEW, like at points, like even if you took like prime Seth Rollins and put him in like current day AEW, he'd probably be like, I don't know if he'd even be like in the top 5 workers. Like he probably would. I don't know. Maybe he would even scratch top 10 in terms of like workers.
I don't even think he's ever like scratched the top 5 in the WWE. Honestly, like there might be some brief periods, but even like now, like I mean, I'd take Sammy over him, Cody. I mean, I'd have to think about the other ones, but like.
And I'm not hating on him. I'm not trying to hate on him. I'm just saying, like, even guys, Seth was better than he is now, but he's had bad injuries and he's older. He's almost 40. Slash coupled with, I think the guys who they've, brought up and replaced people with, I don't think are of the same caliber. Like,
I don't,
I'm sorry, like Bronson Reed, like, no. Like,
no, they've tried so hard, and he's so uneven.
Karrion Kross, no.
But see, I'll just say with Seth Rollins, like I'm never going to give Seth Rollins a lot of credit. If you're watching this and you like how he works and stuff, that's fine. I just strongly disagree with how he approaches pro wrestling, and it bothers me. And I don't like. For me, it's just. He does not work. I do not like how he approaches wrestling on a deep philosophical level, and that's why I'm always going to have not good things to say about Seth Rollins. And I apologize if you like Seth Rollins. That's a me thing, and I'll straight up admit that.
To me, Seth Rollins comes off with having that. Okay, this is the part in the match where Seth Rollins does the Falcon Arrow. Like you can
superplex into the Falcon Arrow. That's never pinned
he does the deal, like Mitch Ryder would say. It's but it bothers me in that even with Rollins being able to do very athletic stuff, and him being consistently pushed as a big deal, now like even currently, he's not being presented as one. And if you watch enough, then you can almost call the beats for his matches. Here comes this, here comes this, here comes this. Flip a coin. Is he going to do the fake knee sell on this one or not? Don't know. Let's see what happens. And that's the thing, is I'm not blaming him for it. I'm blaming... There is somebody who instituted this, that this is going to be the continuous thing over and over, and we're gonna have our quote-unquote our style of match, and that's what we're gonna do. And I'm just like, look, I will dog on AEW for their excess. I don't need every match on the card to have 1, 2, and then it's the last second kick out, and the guy doing the pin goes, oh, how did he do it? Oh my god. It's like, yeah, no kidding. How did he kick out of your second rope drop kick? That move you never win with. You know what feud still
pisses me off today is when they had Seth, and it's nothing they did. I'm not going to blame Rollins or Ziggler for this, but when they had the Rollins Ziggler thing, and they had them do the 30-minute Iron Man match, and it's like, dumbasses, their first match in the series went longer than 30 minutes.
Yeah. And so... Like, yes, I get grumpy with AEW for doing that. I call it the AEW excess. But I still prefer their matches, because their matches, even if they have all of the same pieces as a previous match does, they mix them up more. And it's different, and it's more fun for me to watch.
Yeah.
And so...
I was going to ask...
I feel bad for people in the company. Like, for example, I like Xavier Woods. I like him a lot. I wish I could have seen more of him, but
they don't do squat with him anymore.
No, now we're doing from what I can tell from clips that I see, is they're they're teasing the Kofi Xavier breakup, and I'm like, okay, but you're not going to do anything with either one after you do that. Why?
I have a soft spot for Xavier because I remember watching him in NWA Anarchy in like 2006 when he was doing like the Austin Creed thing, and like he was like a couple years into his career. But I was gonna ask Matt on his first great matches. Did you see any of like the Sting Vader stuff? Because that would have been about when you.
Oh
started
yeah,
out.
actually, I did see like the King of Cable
Oh, that's a good one.
final, which man, we should probably watch that because that might actually be like a 5-star match or close to it. And I remember liking it a lot, but I think I was probably at the time like wrapped up a little more in like Warrior Savages, like, but yeah, the Sting Vader matches were good. Like they had an amazing chemistry. Like I don't know why exactly it worked as well as it did. Maybe like they both just liked each other, but they meshed. I mean, sometimes you have
I can tell
that
you
like,
exactly
connection.
why it worked well, because Sting was just big enough to believably give it back to Vader, but also being big enough, he was athletic enough to do everything Vader wanted to do to make Vader look like a killer. So it's not like the problem you'd have if you did like say Shawn Michaels and Vader, where you have a huge size disparity and that affects like the things that Michaels can do, even though he can sell well for Vader. But with Sting, like, yeah, Sting can sell for him really well and stuff, but Sting's big enough that if he wants to start throwing Vader around a bit, it's believable, which like Michaels
Yeah,
couldn't do. So you have to kind of like approach the match a little
yeah.
differently, even though it might be good.
I've gotten my picture taken with Sting like a couple times now, but it's been like within the last like 5-6 years. So he's obviously been older. I'm not a big guy. I'm only like 6 feet, and I'm probably weigh like between like 170, 180. I'm like a medium sized guy, and I'm not super tall. But Sting like is much bigger than me, like much bigger, taller, even still like has size to him.
Yeah.
Even though he's like, when I first got my picture taken with him, he's probably like close to 60, if not 60. Now he's like 64, I think. He's a big dude still. And yeah, like he was athletic as hell. We talked about it. Freakish. He's freakish, like in terms of like, and his sons, like the sons who look just like him,
Yeah.
you know, are both like big dudes. The one training with Darby to become. Can I give before we move on, can I get like an honorable mention?
Yeah.
I honorable mention like great match I saw because I didn't really get pay-per-views often, Shad, either, just because my parents were like, my dad certainly was like a cheapskate. Occasionally he would let me order them. He would let me order one, not like every month, maybe every like 6 months, maybe if I was like, you know, really good, like once a quarter.
I
But
think a banner year for me was like getting 4 one year.
yeah. But I did convince him to order. They convinced my parents to order in New Japan WCW Japan Super Show 3 that they did in 1993. It aired 1993, and I was able to convince my parents because it was like at the time like $10 or something, which with inflation was probably more like 20 or so. But I mean, that was like cheap enough that my parents were like, yeah, whatever. And I wanted it because it was like WCW and it was like Japanese stars. So I was like excited, like, oh, this is different. And the opening match, at least of like the aired show, was Ultimo Dragon versus Jushin Thunder Liger for the IWGP Junior Championship. And I'd have to watch it again. But when I watched it as a kid, like it blew my mind, like how good it was. And I'm sure if we watched it, like it probably would be at least because they're so good. They were so good, especially that was like their prime. Or maybe even like early in Ultimate Dragon. Ultimate Dragon's prime may have hit like a few years later, but it probably would be at least like a 4-star match. I highly doubt it was not that good, at least that good. But if you probably took that match and watched it, I'm sure like it was. If you took that and placed it in like say 2017 to 2022 New Japan, it probably would have been like the 5th or 6th best match on the card, because that's just how great like New Japan was during that period. But I was like blown away by that match. I loved it. So that's an honorable mention for me. I mean, Ultimate Dragon, Jushin Thunder Liger, like 2 of the best from the last like 30 years. Like no wonder it was a good match.
Yeah.
I have a hard time. I've realized I have a hard time with match rating stuff because I don't think of matches like that anymore. I'll watch a match and I'm like, okay, did they do a good job? Was I engaged? You know, did they do a good job? Was I engaged and invested? If that's the case, good match, happy with it. If I'm kind of invested, that was all right. And if I'm out of it, I'm out of it. I don't put stars to anything anymore. I don't know. My brain doesn't work like that anymore.
My problem with it is my problem with it is it's like it's not a static thing for me. So like
Yeah.
like so something I might have rated like 3.5 stars like 10 years ago could like be wildly worse or wildly better depending on my taste or my expanded knowledge. Like especially through this show, there's like and you know, watching these with Shad and like kind of him giving me ideas of like the worker perspective, then you start to see things through like the Shad eye of being a worker. So there's like so many things now that like change like my appreciation for like a match. Like we were talking about it off air and I think I mentioned it on air briefly, but just like someone's positioning in a match like can affect so much. And just but for me, the problem is, and why I don't know why people get so upset about Meltzer's star ratings personally, but it's like, but like for me, it's like if I rated something just 5 stars, it you know, and I watched it again a year later, like it can like for me, it's like okay, well, if I'm in a bad mood, that might make me knock a star down. Like, what if the match before like pissed me off? Like that might make me punish the next match. Like there's a lot of variables in that. So I do it on the show when something's pretty good, like when we're recommending it, and it's more like a generalized thing to kind of give people hey, this is what I'm thinking it's in this range of. But like that's all I really do for star ratings. But what were you gonna say about it, Matt?
The actual, I think I'm kind of with you. Like I'm with both of you a little bit in that I'm not hard and fast like pouring over a match. It's like this must be I'm gonna have 4 stars, 4.5. No, I'm not like that strict. But I can kind of like generally feel like wow, like this would if I were to give a star to this, it'd probably be within this range maybe. And I'm with you also, Brad, that I probably like there are matches that I loved that watching it later with more knowledge, maybe I don't love as much, or I'm like, still good, but not great. Other ones that I like maybe didn't appreciate, I like now really enjoy. And that's, I think SummerSlam 92 is like the perfect example that we did in the show. Well, when I was a kid, I thought again, Warrior Savage was like, okay. But watching it again, I'm like, damn, it's a good match. And then I loved as a kid, Brett versus Davey. And watching it later, I'm like, it's good, but obviously because of Davey Boy's limits, it's nowhere near as good as I thought it was. So that's where it kind of flips. On the flip side, I think people maybe obsess a little bit too much about it, but I also do think like people who like kind of mock Dave Meltzer, he kind of deserves it because I do think he's like wildly overrated stuff. And it's more like, again, I'm not strict with like this match must be like 4 stars. Like, no, it becomes kind of subjective after a while. At the same time, it's almost like, let's say you're like a gourmand, you're like a food critic where you've had a lot of great food from a lot of great restaurants, and maybe you can struggle to be like, is this the perfect risotto? Is this the best risotto in the city? Or maybe you struggle about certain things. There's certain things, if someone comes in and it's like, this is the best burger in town, maybe you've had enough of them, you'd be like, from that restaurant, no, like it's not that good.
Yeah.
So with Meltzer's, where he rates like, I'm gonna rate every Will Ospreay match 5+ stars just because he's breathing in it. It's like, no. No,
But there's
it's not that. He rated. I use this example because like earlier this year, he rated Osprey Kyle Fletcher 5 stars, and I watched the match. Good match. It's like, what were you, Dave?
But
Dave,
I'm going to
please.
defend. I'm going to
This was not
defend.
5 stars.
I'm going to defend Dave on one though. Like the people that bitch endlessly, and they're still doing it about how Kurt Angle never got a 5-star match, and it's like the Voices of Wrestling guys went through and like reviewed them all to see if Dave was wrong, and I believe according to Other Brad, their final verdict was Meltzer was not wrong, and that's stuff like that's where I get annoyed with people though. It's like because like no, go watch the Kurt Angle matches for yourself. Like he never had a 5-star match. Like I will go down on that hill. He like Kurt Angle had a lot of warts and flaws as a worker. Like there are some times he got close, but no, he never had a 5-star match. And because people never like throw one right out there tells me like they don't.
See,
Yeah. In fairness, yeah, I'd have to watch them again.
But that's still a disingenuous knock because, okay, to say, oh, Kurt Angle never had a 5-star match is dogging him as a work. No, because I will say, like, if you have, and I'm making up numbers here, just roll with me for a minute. We say we lay out 200-year matches and 150 of them are 4-star matches or 4-star or maybe above. Dude, that is outstanding. That is fantastic. Did it never get all the way to 5-star? Who cares? And you know, the other reason I don't get stuck on the damn the star ratings is like you guys said, sometimes I'm not in the mood for a technical match. Sometimes we're watching stuff for the show and I'm just like, I am not feeling this. Or sometimes you're like, oh, you know, I don't want to take all the time it takes to cook the steak the way I want it to have the great steak and the potato and the vegetables just right. I just want a damn burger. Can I just have a damn burger, please? That's what I'm in the mood for. And sometimes you just have a burger match on TV and you're like, that was great. I loved it. Give me, that was exact. That's the burger I was in the mood for. And I'm more into that. The fixation on rating the matches drives me crazy.
Yeah, I agree.
If I was going to give, because I don't know, man. If I was going to give, there was only one off the top of my head for Angle that I would really want to go back and examine. And I watched it a number of times before I didn't anymore, and that phrase will make sense in a minute. But it was Royal Rumble Angle versus Voldemort, which I thought was
that's
just
cool.
a banger of a match. But I haven't watched it in like 15 years, so I don't know how good I would say it was.
It was close. I think that's always been about 4.5 to 4 3/4 in my head. But like where I would defend it is like go back and watch things that are like legitimately like 5 stars. Go watch like Flair Steamboat 2 out of 3 falls. Like the Ray Psychosis match like we watched. I don't know, Bryan Danielson, Kenny Omega 30-minute draw. Like, yeah, that's all. I
think I'm to the place where if you're gonna gun to my head, force me to rate matches, I'm gonna give a match. It's going to be check plus, or minus, and that's gonna be how I put it because there's just too many variables for me to be able to be that precise on it.
And like you said though. Sometimes you don't want to put all the work in on your steak. Sometimes, like, I don't want to sit through this 25-minute match that I'm going to have to pay attention to and break down because it's a 5-star match and, like, highly acclaimed. Like, you know what I want to watch? Like, I just want to watch a good hour of jobbers getting murdered. Like,
jobbers getting murdered. I want to see me a brawl. You know what? Brawls technically aren't good matches because you don't. But I want to see a brawl. I want to watch Anarchy in the arena. You know why? Because Anarchy, they do crazy stuff, and it's fun, and they do funny stuff in there, or something like that. Or I want to watch a Casino Gauntlet, because it's fun to see all these different people do stuff together. And damn it, I cheered as loud as anybody when the Outrunners came out for that Casino Tag Gauntlet. Stuff like that.
So we have our next topic. So this is more of a personal one. So this is and I would say he's almost the mascot of this show in his own way. All right. So, or I should say he's like a show sponsored like favorite. Like he's probably up there as like a show favorite. But so, where would Ron Simmons because I was thinking about this the other day. Where would Ron Simmons rank in your personal pantheon? Because I was like going over it the other day because I was listening to some interview with him or something, or I was watching something with him in it, and I was like, like Simmons might actually like, and I'm not like I'm talking about personal favorite here, nothing like based on quality, just like my opinion of them and like my enjoyment of them. And I was like, well, like Simmons like could possibly be in like my top 10 like personal favorites. Because the more I see of him and the more like I interact with him like as the person and the wrestler, he always just creeps a little further up on my like esteem.
So the way that I'm going to try and describe this, and if I quit making sense, please tell me. You got your wide array of people that are fine. Then you have people who are good, people who are really good, and then people who are like, my top tier, my favorites. Like these are the folks I always enjoy. And I'm gonna say that he's in that really good strata, because the thing that I really like about Ron Simmons is that he has always been it. Okay, I should say it this way. It seems to me that Ron Simmons is a guy who has always been very good at playing to his strengths. He has not been someone who has let people drag him into stuff he's not good at. He knows what he's good at, and he leans into that. And that he doesn't have to have someone do it for him. He didn't have to have a booker be like, draw it out of him or anything like that. He's like, no, he's a big, strong dude who does big, strong dude stuff, and then he uses his football background to mow people over. Like, the dude knows what he's good at and what he's about, and he's very confident and assured of who he is. And then he found a way to be funny, too. So, he knows what he's good at. He does that. That's excellent.
I always laugh when they ask them why they took the masks off Doom.
Oh, I don't remember that.
And he's like, because we were the only two black guys in the territory, of course everyone knew who we were.
All right.
Also, he's a self-avowed Bullet Bob Armstrong mark, which made me like him even more, because he grew up in the South and stuff, and he talking about his grandma loved wrestling and she loved Bullet Bob Armstrong in like the 70s, so that was like his guy too. And I'm like, anyone that loves Bullet Bob Armstrong like goes up a little bit in my esteem.
I feel like this show is maybe appreciate him more. I don't know that I put him like as high as like a top 10 personal favorite, but there are lots of guys I probably would and do rank higher than him, but I do like Ron Simmons. He's one of those guys that I felt like he should have been. I said this on the show recently, like he should have been bigger than he was, which, I mean, he had the world title for a time, so it's like he needed to reach a certain level, but it's like he probably should have been like kind of cemented in that like main event spot. I know he left WCW, but when he came to the WW and then the WWF, like he should have been more main event than he was. Maybe even had like a brief like title run there. Like he should have been more cemented than he just, basically slid down into like the mid card and was a part of the APA tag team, which was successful. I mean, he had a successful career, like, because not every. This is the thing. I sometimes I have myself. It's like some people, like, especially nowadays when it's like, oh, so like so fumbled this. It's like, did they? People kind of use the word fumbled a lot now, or do you not just appreciate that some guys just are never going to be world champions, and that's okay, because that's not the role that they should fill. But I feel like, especially after watching.
So can I make an argument to why you might want to move him up your list a little bit? So he did save us from Ahmed Johnson. So if you remember, Ahmed Johnson injured him.
True.
And then he came back, like the first match back, he like completely sandbagged Ahmed and just beat his ass in front of everyone to the point that Ahmed Johnson like completely lost his overness.
Oh yeah, who told that story? Basically, D'Lo told the story like in a
I think
shoot.
Mark Henry's
D'Lo,
told that. Mark Henry's told that story too, I think.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was D'Lo or Mark Henry. Mark Henry did have, I've said before, like one of my like favorite Ron Simmons stories is that Ron Simmons was just like so ungodly, like naturally strong. I mean, obviously he worked out, but I mean, I don't necessarily presume he was like, you know, on the juice versus just a big dude. He was naturally like strong as hell and didn't have to do a hell of a lot to maintain that necessarily.
No, Luger talked about, because Luger played offensive line, I think at like Miami or something, and he talked about, because they played each other in college. Like if you don't know, Luger got Simmons in because they encountered each other a lot in football. But he was talking about the first time he saw Ron Simmons, and like the guy next to him on the offensive line had to block Simmons, and he's like, yeah, Simmons was just a monster, and this poor guy probably weighed like 180 pounds and just got like murdered the whole game.
Mauled.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Mark Henry, I think, told you like there was a great story where because they would like ride together and work out and everything like that. And he said that the story, which I've told on the show before, but like Ron Simmons, I guess they would go into like the gym. Ron Simmons would go in there, like take off his shirt. He had like jeans on, like just like pants. Like, you know, it wasn't even like workout gear. Take off his shirt, so he's like shirtless. He had like, you know, his hair and everything. Had like his hair pick. He'd go in there, and Mark Henry said he'd just go in there and bench like some ungodly number, like 400 pounds, 500 pounds. Do a set, sit down on the bench, pick his hair for a couple minutes, go back, do another big set, ungodly weights, sit down, turn to my it's like, let's go get some breakfast. And it's just like, damn. And Ron Simmons would do that. It's like, that's a hilarious thing but I believe it because you hear stories and you see like how he was, and it's like, yeah, that sounds exactly like what he was. And he's one of those guys that you hear some story. You don't hear like a million stories about Ron Simmons, but you hear stories, hear anything where it's like the same problematic guy. Like, no, seems like he was, you know, a pretty decent guy, good worker. People maybe they don't have like a million things to say about him because he wasn't like doing a lot of dynamic stuff behind the scenes, which is
Everyone
especially in the 90s. In the 90s was a good thing. He wasn't.
Everyone always has like positive things to say about him. Like I think like when they asked Too Cold Scorpio about like Bradshaw, he's like, yeah, he was one of Simmons' boys, so like he was, you know, I was cool with him. Like
another thing that you guys hadn't already mentioned that I liked about Ron Simmons, and a lot of this came out of the D'Lo Brown shoot, because I haven't seen a Mark Henry shoot, but I watched D'Lo's, is how good of a mentor Ron Simmons was to guys who were coming up. Because Ron would give him the stuff. He'd say, now look, you know, Ron would give you advice. He would say, now, if I remember how D'Lo said it properly, just grain of salt. But it's not like you sit down, I'm going to tell you. Ron would be like, look, man, let me give you some advice. If this is happening, this is what you need to be doing. You know, take care of yourself. And the story that pops out most in my head was D'Lo was having a match with Vader, and Vader was being Vader, and he had him in the corner. He's doing those forearm hammers, and he's laying him in a bit hard, and D'Lo's in the corner getting rocked, and he heard Ron Simmons say, "Don't you let him do that to you." And so D'Lo was just like, all right. And then overhand, straight fist popped Vader in the face. And so Vader kind of shook it off. And then whenever he went to take D'Lo by the arm to shoot him across the ring or into the ropes or whatever, gentlest grip in the world. Yeah. So it was Ron being like, you stand up for yourself. Don't let people take advantage of you kind of thing, as opposed to being like, well, you know, what you did wrong with your stuff out there is you did things that got you over. And I don't like people getting more over than me because, you know, you have vets do that.
Can I say that's one thing I always appreciated about Vader is Vader would stiff the ever loving shit out of you, but like he never whined one moment if you gave it back to him. Which I always feel like if you're gonna stiff someone and you're fine getting it right back, like then I'm cool with it. Also, Frank says
you mean like the bitch known as Low Key?
Yes. Frank says
Fuck
it was
you, Low Key.
Frank says it was jeans and cowboy boots that he would work out in.
Sorry, Low Key pops up and I lose my PG rating. It just
But
that guy.
that was that's also one thing with Vader though. Is just like, yeah, he'd stiff you, but people said like, yeah, just fight. You know, if you fight back, he's fine with it. But Vader, when you hear interviews, Vader wanted people to.
That's what he expected. That's how he was trained. So he wanted you to give it back.
Yeah. But so I think I would say Ron Simmons is like a Four Corners podcast like favorite.
I think we can call him a. He is someone that we appreciate in particular.
So it is time for the main event. So this week we are spotlighting the New Zealand Sheepherders because I don't know how the audio went. So we took 4 matches in a promo this week, and this is all pre-WWF. This is when they were violent maniacs, and lo and behold, there is some violent mania in these. So our first match is going to be them defending the PNW tag team titles against Rick Martel and Roddy Piper in 1980. Then we're going to jump ahead to it's them and the Fantastics in the UWF in 86, then them versus the Guerreros in the UWF / Houston in 86, and then against the Youngbloods in 1985 in the World Wrestling Council. So let's go, we're just going to go to the oldest one first. So this is the Sheepherders versus Piper and Martel. This fits in pretty tightly if you go back and watch our Piper and Portland episode. This kind of fits snugly into that timeline. The Sheepherders are the champs, and they are defending against Piper and Martel here. And the one thing I love about Portland is their tag matches, especially their tag title matches, are all 2 out of 3 falls, which I think is a neat little differentiation for the belt. But now my first thing I wanted to say, though, is I really think the camo works better than their weird, like, New Zealand flag tights they were kind of going for here. I did not like those.
No, I didn't like that either.
Was the color tights supposed to be like the flag? I
They're
guess I didn't
red
pick
and
that.
blue. I don't know. And
Okay.
then I couldn't decide if I liked them better with hair or without hair, because there was something extra terrifying when they had hair.
I like it without hair.
Yeah.
I like them without hair, but I will say, like, they definitely, with hair and the beards, they definitely looked more like just dirt bags, like just greasy dirt bag heels. Whereas I felt when they had more of the traditional what we became known as like the Bushwackers look, they were more frightening. Like visually, they looked more rough. So
my excitement that I got out of this episode, the biggest thing I got out of this episode, is I can tell Butch and Luke apart now on site. So that's my big one.
Was it really hard for you?
I could figure it out, but not like right away. Like if I just turned the match on, I might be like, it might take me a minute, but now I can kind of tell them apart. I kind of did, but I have a stronger differentiation of them now. So one thing I did like about this match is I liked that Martel and Piper's solution to dealing with the Sheepherders was just to do technical wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
That was how they thwarted them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, what we saw here is that they were always kind of just like violent brawlers.
Yeah.
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 And I like that they're still a little goofy. Like they have a bit of that Bushwackers goofy to them, which kind of makes them scarier that they're a little goofy, because it's like, oh, that they're just insane.
Yeah.
But this was I didn't think this match was like the best thing I'd ever seen, but it was enjoyable. And I thought watching them work a more extended, kind of more technical match where they were being kind of thwarted a bit was interesting. What I really liked about them, though, as a team is their dirty little cheats on the tag wrestling. I really like, because there's points where they don't make tags. They're always like, if they can get to you from the apron, they're always going to do something. Like they're very dirty tag wrestlers. Like their tag tactics were solid.
Oh yeah, they definitely had like the healing like down pat. And
I
there
like
was actually one like, go ahead.
And if I was to train someone, I would make them watch this just for the Piper pin saves and say, this is how you do pin saves. You don't do what modern people do where they just kick a person in the head. Like, you do the Piper thing where he is physically lifting them off of his partner.
Yeah. Yeah.
In watching this, I'm sorry, Matt, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Tell your thought.
In watching this, I did not love this, I think, the same way you guys may have.
It was okay. I didn't think it was like amazing. I appreciated aspects of it, of their work.
Here I'm watching this, and I'm wanting to. I'm watching this, and the announcer was killing me. The number of times in the entire match I heard back to back, Martel, 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 Piper, Martel, and I'm just like, yeah, dude,
it's
this is why you need. This is why you need. You need at least two people in the booth so they have someone to play off of.
It was Don Owens. It's the owner.
But
the commentary.
I don't know. This one just it did not. It's that modern versus the era before style split that bugged we've talked about before, that bugs me, because it's like I want it. I want a little more out of it. I want some more, like, but of course that's not what this style was at the time, so we didn't get that. And
did you like the promo between the falls, both of you? That's a question.
No, I hate that.
Don't like it.
It takes me right out. It takes me right out. But that can also just be me.
I did like that they were cheating and stuff though, and they were whining about Piper's sleeper being illegal.
Oh yeah, I did see that. That was fun.
There's I almost put it on here because there's like a Piper or Luke Williams hair match that looked interesting, but it was a singles. I'm like, that defeats the purpose.
It does, yeah.
Of them.
I enjoyed the match. It wasn't like, oh my god, it's my personal favorite, but I enjoyed it. It was interesting to see even like Sheepherders before they even became even more of like kind of what they were kind of known for. Because this is like what, 1980?
Yeah.
I think this was time frame.
They were regulars in Stampede, and they had done like All Japan and New Japan at this point. They were like about 6 or 7 years in at this point, but I think they're kind of figuring the gimmick out, I think.
Yeah, weren't they? I don't even think they were called Sheepherders here. What they called, like the Kiwis or something like that.
The Kiwi Sheepherders, I think.
Or Kiwi Sheepherders, okay.
Or the Kiwi Militia or something like that, or something.
I liked it. I liked the match. I actually thought Piper and Martel did a really good job. I
actually like this. The Portland stuff we've seen with Martel, that's some of my favorite stuff I've seen with him, because like
it's solid. He's really solid.
Like I know he was the model forever, but like his fiery babyface stuff I really enjoy.
He was a good babyface. He did a spot in this which I actually thought was really, really cool, where he did like he had, I don't know if he had like the head scissors, he had something on, like I think it was Luke, and he basically
his rope walk.
Yes, he goes over to the ropes and like climbs the ropes in the turnbuckle up in the top, and then is able to do like a head scissors takeover to, I think it was Luke. I don't think it was Bush, but it was like an impressive spot. I'm like, that's a really cool spot for like 40 plus years ago. Like that was kind of like avant-garde, like unique. Like if some dude did that in a match like WWE or AEW today, you'd be like, oh, it's a really clever spot. So yeah, props where it's due. Like the really cool spot going on like 40 plus years in the past.
Yeah.
Martel just was like ridiculously like athletic back then. I thought Piper's always good. This was like, in some ways it wasn't prime Piper in terms of like his like star power and everything like clicking, but in terms of like his actual like possibly his work rate, he was really, really good. He was kind of like still young and fiery in this. Which not that he was not that way when he's older, but obviously like, you know, when you get older and more experienced, like you don't necessarily even have to do as much. Certainly like in the WWF, he didn't have to like go as hard because that wasn't the style. But one thing I wrote in my notes that I thought the ref Sandy Barr sucked.
Oh, he sucked in everything we've watched.
He sucks. He's terrible. And I looked it up because I'm like, I know we've seen him before, but I'm like, let me read more about him. He was a wrestler before.
He's like Portland. He's like if you watch Portland, it's going to be Sandy Barr like 9 times out of 10 reffing. And I mean, I bitched about him on the Portland episode because he's just not good at his job.
He's terrible. He's slow. He's one of those that's like, here's a pinfall, and like he didn't even like. Is it even like? Now look, I understand like there can be refs where it's like, and I feel like people like place like TNA was bad about this for a bit, but some places they can be like, hey ref, this is not about you, so dial it down, dial the act, dial the character down, because you're not the focal point. I get that, but he's like the other extreme, where it's like they're going down for a pin, and it's like he doesn't even like go to like I'm gonna slap the mat, whatever. He would just like kind of like lazily lean over and be like 1, 2, and it's like, come on, you're like, God, this sucks.
Yeah,
it's where he gets me though is his like, he's so like bipolar in how he like refs, because it'll be like, well, you just put that guy through the table, well, I'm gonna allow it, and it's like, hey, don't pull that hair or I'm gonna DQ you.
Yeah,
like he does that
it's
stuff
like,
that drives me nuts.
It's not. Again, I know you're supposed to suspend disbelief, but it's still, you need to try to have some sort of logical consistency to some of the scrap.
Yeah.
But
it's like they just shot them in the ring, and he's like, okay, well, I don't think you should have done that, but okay.
Time,
and it's like, it's like,
I'll allow it
like,
this time.
Yeah, it's like, hey, like don't grab those tights.
You better break that 5 count.
Yeah,
mister, break that 5 count.
That's where he gets me, because he did something else like that, where he was just letting this weird stuff go, and then like the weird lines he draws, just I don't get it.
Also, I don't know why I didn't make this connection, but y'all know who he was the father to, right?
Oh, Art Bar.
Latin Love Machine, Art Bar. But he was also the father to Jesse Barr, aka Jimmy Jack Funk from the WWF in the mid-'80s. I was like, what? No idea. I had no idea what he. And
I should have put that together, but I think I knew that, but it never like.
Yeah. He was older at this point. I think he was like 50, or at least 50.
Why in the hell? This is small in comparison to everything else, but it bugged the hell out of me. Why? If you're gonna go out there and be a ref, could you be professional enough to change your damn shirt into a ref shirt, as opposed to looking like some schlub they just drug in off the street?
Well, no, that's like if you've watched other stuff, Don Owens always comments on it. That's kind of like his shtick. If you really want to
giving a damn,
I mean, he's not as bad as like David Manning. Like if you go to like World Class, like they have like David Manning like cutting promos and stuff, and like.
I hated David Manning.
Yeah, he's the worst. And also, World Class.
I don't like Bronco Lubitsch either. Like,
well, Cornette. I think it was Cornette, or it was the Laps fan was talking about the wrestlers used to do stuff intentionally to try and make Bronco Lubitsch have to get down on his knees as much as possible because he didn't like doing it. So they would always like screw with him like that. So we're going to jump ahead a couple years here. So we're going to go to 1985 to the World Wrestling Council, and this is the Sheepherders against Mark and Jay Youngblood in Puerto Rico. So now this match blew my mind. So if you don't know, Hugo Sanovich, who is like a legend, he was on the WWF announce team forever. He's the AAA announcer, and he did World Wrestling Council through the 80s. He's doing this in English.
I was blown away because you told me like, oh yeah, that's Hugo Savinovich, and I'm like, what? Like, first off, I've never heard him commentate anything. I never even heard him speak English. Number one, and number two, his English is, I mean, again, this is a very, maybe it's like a very, white person way to say it, but it's like I've only heard him speak Spanish language. Okay, so cut me a little slack, but first time I've heard him speak English, and it's like his English is really good, and by really good, I mean like you're obviously someone who's not someone like I took like a couple years of English in school. It's like, no, you obviously speak English and have spoke English very well, at least like professionally or in a professional.
No, he was doing like he had a color guy who I can't figure out who it was, but yeah. I had commented the guy whose English is his second language is doing a far better job on commentary than the native English speaker. But
it kept swinging back and forth on the two of them about who was doing better. It seemed like depending on when in the match it was who was doing better.
Hugo had a couple of weird things he said, but like a lot of his like awkwardness I kind of thought was like a language and cultural barrier, where like he was trying to say something that like worked really well in Spanish, but it kind of comes out weird in English, which I think is what happened a couple times. But it is Hugo because that channel, which is like WWC Classics, which you should subscribe to because they have a lot of great stuff on there. But if you go watch others 80s stuff to the Spanish commentary, it's him. It's the exact same voice speaking Spanish.
No, yeah, I can understand kind of what you're saying, Brad, because my wife and I have like had contact with a lot of Spanish speaking people through like daycares and other people that we know, like from my kids. And there's sometimes like native Spanish speaking, they'll talk to us, and my wife is much better at Spanish than I am. I'm not very good, but sometimes they'll say it's something in Spanish, but they'll maybe talk in English for my benefit, and sometimes they'll be like, don't really know how to say this in English. Like there's not that they can't, but it's like
English
it's just well, they've always said that English is like a really difficult language, and I can understand because there's many different tenses.
Well, English does everything.
The same word can mean like 5 things sometimes.
Well, and English is also screwed up because if you speak Spanish tends to go verb noun is the sentence structure, and English goes noun verb. So English works in the exact reverse of Spanish, and Spanish is much more simplified because like if you're going to say like boy or girl or female or male, anything, you just go from O to A. So everything is like really simplified, but it's hard because like you said, English, like a word can mean 5 different things, but English is also backwards to them.
Yeah, the adjectives also follow the noun in Spanish as opposed to English. So that would be like saying the farmer old drove the tractor green across the field plowed. Instead of, and it's just like Hugo does a very good job. He's in that nebulous zone where he is obviously very proficient with the language, but you can tell it's not his primary, if that makes sense. And
the other guy was saying
it's not an easy thing to do.
The other guy was saying some weird shit too, which I think made it worse. Because when he's talking about rugby, I'm like, that's not how rugby goes. And the other guy's like, I don't really know rugby. And it's like, well, I wouldn't necessarily expect you to.
He also said a couple of weird things because this was obviously, I think this was like a Puerto Rico match, right?
Yeah.
But the commentary was actually obviously done. It wasn't done contemporaneously when it was aired, which I think it was like
because they kept talking about Jay Youngblood's death. So Jay
Youngblood died, but
what I'm guessing here. Okay, go for it.
Oh, go ahead. Well, okay, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think what happened here is they were releasing these with English commentary after the fact, trying to expand a bit. And I'm betting this came out in like Texas and like some of those like southwestern states, and that's why they did this. But I was confused by this, but I don't know why they had English commentary. I was really shocked.
It could have been that.
I thought we were going to get Spanish commentary, and then they're speaking English. I'm like, what the heck? Like, World Wrestling Council had English commentary?
Yeah. It probably was like you said. It was probably like they were going to do like video releases, or this was a video release, maybe trying to expand it. But he said something where it's like this. They did the commentary, obviously, potentially years after the fact, and because they talked about Jay Youngblood dying. But he says something which is like it's factually not true at all. He's like, "Oh, Jay Youngblood, like he died in the wrestling ring.
Yeah,
like he was in a match and like his pancreas like ruptured. He died."
I think he was trying to
all what
or
happened.
something.
Maybe, but it was weird because the commentator generally I felt he was fine, but he said weird things like that. And there were times where it's like he was just doing like straight color. But there were a couple times, like towards the end, he'd almost seemed like he was trying to like kind of softly play out like, oh, I'm gonna be like a heel color commentator, because it's like he was kind of taking the side of the Sheepherders, and it's like kind of weird. Like you were basically kind of neutral the entire match, and all of a sudden you're kind of like rooting for the heels now, but softly. It's like it's kind of weird.
What did I couldn't remember off the top of my head, and I should have looked it up. What did Jay actually die from?
He did die. He did die of, I think it may have been pancreatitis, but it was like alcohol related. Like he was unfortunately very bad. I'm sorry to cut you off, Shad.
it's fine.
He was very bad alcoholic, and it wrecked his like internal organs. What were we gonna say? I'm sorry.
It is so pancreatitis comes out of a lot of alcohol abuse, and as I remember, because whenever he said that about died in the ring, I was like, no, wait just a second, because that's awfully specific the way he's talking. Yeah, his pancreas got wrecked, but it was not in the ring. It was during a tour that he was doing, but it wasn't in the ring. So, it sucks, but it still happened. And it was a weird thing to add in, like he's trying to add something about the tragic legacy to the team or something with this.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I mean, I get what you're trying to do here, but I'm also not buying it.
Yeah.
So
can I just say Mark looked like an absolute dumbass the way he cost them the match?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was good distraction from the manager. I appreciate that the manager really did his job there. This was okay. I mean, so I don't know what I thought of this match. I thought it was like a competent tag match, and it really kind of showcased. Fine. I think it showcased them pretty well and like how they behave.
I thought it was fine. It was kind of. It was one of the matches we saw. It was probably one of the more, I guess, kind of nothing special, but traditional like face heel type of thing, where there's a lot of stalling early on, and then when they did do it, there was obviously some heel tactics, right down to like the classic heel finish, where like the manager distracts one of the ref and one of the face tag team members, causing like the heels to do a double team maneuver and steal the win, because the ref, the other face is being pinned. Let me go run in 1, 2, 3, after like a double team effort has happened. So it's very like traditional and classic, like one of those classic tropes. But
one of those things you wouldn't be mad if you saw this on TV.
No, it would have been like a perfectly fine like TV match. Not to go to stars, but it wouldn't be like a 5-star classic. Maybe it would just be like 2 stars, maybe 2.5. Yeah. But it would be a fine. I know, I agree with you, Brad. Like the quality of wrestling has improved, but still, it like would have been like a 10-15 minute.
Even now, if I went to a show and someone did this exact match on like a show I was sitting at live, like halfway through the show, I'd been like, oh, that was fine. Like I had fun.
I would have been like, no, it's bullshit.
Yeah, I would have been like, that's perfectly fine.
Oh, in the last like couple of years, I haven't been to many, but I've been to like a couple like indie shows where it's like this was better than some of the indie stuff I saw.
Oh, I've been to shows where I would.
And that's not. Yeah, and that's not me cheating. It's just like, this is a perfectly fine match done by very competent workers
Oh
on all
no,
sides.
I was gonna say when you said that, like there's shows I've been to where I would have killed for something this good on the show.
Mm.
Yeah. I might have been on some of those. Anyway.
What'd you think of it, Shad? Were you in the it was fine?
Yeah, it was fine. This match, what it did is, for me, kind of solidified what I saw as a big benefit for the Sheepherders throughout, well, from this match and the two following, is that these guys knew full well that everywhere they went, they were going to be hated. And they wanted, that was fine. That was what they were for. So they did not do, they kept things very basic, very like roughneck, just beating on people in order to have them, in order to not outshine any of the faces or do, they provided the backdrop of just rough and nasty, but basic, so that anything beyond that the faces did would shine more. And I appreciate the thought that goes into that.
Pretty much the only thing they do that resembles like a wrestling hold in these matches is a pile driver, which when they did that, I'm like, that's brilliant. That is the one move that like a couple of crazy psychopaths would like retain, because that does like maximum damage.
Yeah. Yeah, it made perfect sense for them to know that one.
So then we're going to go to, so the next two are the ones I like the most. So we'll just go in chronological order. So I don't know if this one was UWF or it was Houston, but both of these take place in Houston. So the first one is like from March of '86, and this is the Sheepherders versus Hector and Chavo Guerrero. I had to look it up.
Classic.
Yeah, because I looked and I'm like, I don't think Mondo's out there, and I think that's Hector. But so this is the Chavo Senior Hector Guerreros, which the one thing I really liked about this, I loved the Guerreros like double team spots, especially like their leg stuff was really cool. Because if you don't know, they would take the leg and the guy would hold it, and the other guy would like run in and do like a running splash on the leg, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah. They did some really good, leg work, and some of that stuff. It's like, I'm sure they were obviously very competent, like workers in terms of like experienced and everything. But some of that stuff, it's like, ooh, that looked like it could have. If you weren't experienced, like, look, you probably could have really hurt that dude. But I mean, obviously they would land it away. And Chad, you were a worker, so you would know. But it looked like, again, if you didn't know what you were doing, like you could probably like really like damage the guy. But they would do it in a way that in one of the spots, like, well, I think maybe it was a splash spot or something, but I actually like rewound it like a couple seconds to watch it again, because it's like it's obviously like he landed maybe like on the side, or he did it in a way where the brunt of his was either like his arm, a foot, his knee, something where it's like the impact was not, but he did it in a way that it just looked really good. It looked like the full weight just going on the leg. It's like, that's some real technical, from a technical perspective, technical skill in doing that move and doing it in a way that you can actually like make it look like very punishing, but safe, completely safe.
Yeah. They were really good about handling their stuff. Absolutely pros.
I actually thought they were good foils as teams, because you had the Sheepherders who are the Sheepherders, but then on the other side, like the Guerreros could brawl too, but like you had like this uber technical team like as their counterparts in this one. And not only like technical, but kind of like they were very agile, and they were doing some like, I don't know, we'll call it athletic wrestling, or no, what do you call it? Acrobatic wrestling is what Carl Gotch was complaining about Dynamite and Tiger Mask doing. But they were very good kind of foils for each other. And like you said, where they don't upstage people, like I think that they're a very good base for like a team like the Guerreros.
Yes. It helps everybody stand out more when you do that sort of thing.
And I think Butch especially is a really good bumper.
They both bump well, but the interesting thing to me is they moderate it very. Okay, they've got the wild man gimmick going on, so you hit them with something and they don't just immediately drop. They'll stumble and they'll windmill and they'll come back at you. But then whenever they do bump, they do a good job with it. If that fall, like,
they make your stuff look good, because like there was a point where Martel snapmared Butch, and Butch took the snapmare like almost like as perfect as I've ever seen a person take like a snapmare.
For as simple as their gimmick seems to be, I appreciate the hell out of how much thought they did put into it, because they very clearly did things in a very deliberate fashion, and I appreciate that kind of work and thought that they put into it.
And the way they sell too, like when you put them in a headlock, they kind of start like swinging their arms and stuff, and you kind of watch them like, I think he's feigning like he doesn't know what to do because he's not a technical wrestler. He's kind of just like, well, crap, what do I do? And that's part of like the flailing.
It's got a little panicky edge to it. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
But they're selling, and like even here, like the leg selling is really good for the Guerreros. But I forgot to mention that like they're very good bumpers. Like there is a lot of little things that both of them do very well that I don't think they get credit for. Because I looked at their cage match rating and it's in the 4s, and I'm like, come on guys, like stop. You guys need to watch more shit, because like I wouldn't say they're like amazing workers, but they should be like a 6.
So this, I was going to save this for the end, but what you've done is you've given me a way to talk about it right now. The thing that I ended up really appreciating about the Sheepherders and going through this is these guys, they knew, first of all, they knew their gimmick. They were wild, crazy man, basic shit kickers. And if you worked to tag against them, you were going to look good, because one, you got to hang with the crazy tough guys who just kept getting back up every time you knocked them down, but they didn't upstage you, and they would sell well for it, which meant they were going to consistently have work in the territory days. No one was going to be like, well, we can't bring them in. Two, these guys knew their job. Their job was not, I win the title and beat everybody. Their job was, we come in, we act like wild men, we throw hands at everybody, and they're going to beat us, and we go on our way. But it didn't damage their aura. Like, these guys knew what their role is, and they're not worried about having a great match. They know exactly what their job is. They are doing what their job is, and they're doing it well, and I appreciate that a lot.
That's kind of what I said in the chat. Is like, I really appreciate that they forego a bit of match quality to stick to how their characters would wrestle. But I also appreciated that their approach, like they don't you can tell those guys don't have ego.
No, not at all. Yeah. They understand entirely.
Like, they are seasoned veterans that are out there like doing what their assignment is. But like I said, I appreciate that like their matches could probably be a little better, but like it didn't make sense. So like they wrestled like their characters. And I mean, I think the matches were still pretty good. Like, you're just not gonna, these guys are gonna crank out like 3 and 3.5 star matches at their best versus like 4.5, just because that's.
You're bringing to mind the modern day Sage. You want your instant classics, your 5-star matches, not me, bump dead, right? Like, this is very much a proto meaty men slapping meat kind of kind of style.
So then we go to the final match of the night, which I think is actually the cream of the crop for this one. So this is this is from June of '86. So this is UWF Tag Team Champions, the Fantastics. I think they're defending the belts against the Sheepherders, and this is a New Zealand
boot camp match.
Yeah. So I have a big problem with this match to start off. Because so the Fantastics come out and it's just a brawl, and they kind of pissed me off because they take their belts off and they just put them out of the ring, and it's like, why didn't you beat them with the belts? Like, you guys are just leaving hit points on the table.
Yeah.
At that point, but no, I thought it was dumb though. I was like, it's a total brawl. Like, you can get some good shots in with those belts before you get rid of them, and that's just
First off, I thought that the dichotomy, because you have of the just visually, like, the appearance of the two teams. You obviously had like the Sheepherders, and like they have like, kind of like army fatigues and these like kind of tank top things, and they just look dirty and rough, and just I tried to
like they had their hair cut with a weed whacker.
Yeah, they're obviously like
missing teeth,
built from New Zealand. Yeah, missing teeth. They're obviously, there's a cultural divide, obviously, but I feel like the gimmick is almost probably the equivalent of like crazed, violent, like American rednecks. Like, that's maybe kind of like if you would have tried to equate it.
I wouldn't call them rednecks. I would call them backwood hicks. Is what I would more compare them to. Like, I think a good analog to them is the Briscoes. Because couldn't you see Mark out there doing that? But I also think, like, I wouldn't call them hillbillies, but I think like you could take them to like an area with a lot of hillbillies and put them in coveralls and like tell them to talk with a certain accent and just behave the same way, and I think they would be fine in that kind of role, in a heel role.
But they're obviously like these violent brutes. And then you have like the Fantastics with their little jackets on.
Who probably their bow ties.
Who probably like got a perm before the match because it is the
80s. Obviously, to paraphrase like what Jerry Jarrett, like they're a blowjob babyface tag team. But they just start brawling, and it is a brawl. I actually really enjoy this match, to be honest with you. Like, this was the cream of the crop. This was, in my opinion, the best match of the four we watched, and it was the most fun to me. But
there's blood.
There are some people, maybe
there's
like
forking involved in this.
Yeah, they maybe wouldn't even consider this a match because it was really just a violent brawl. And I actually feel like this wasn't even a long match, but I feel like a minute in, like you had at least two guys who were already like head kicked. Oh yeah. They and towards the end of the match, they're just like stabbing each other with forks or some sort of like almost like the Abdul the Butcher fork or sharpened stick. They're just like
they're
stabbing each other in the forehead with it.
At the end of the match, there's a close up where Bobby Fulton's holding it, and he like holds it up in front of the camera, and I'm like, pause, what the hell is that thing?
Because there's almost like a shiv, but
there's a moment where like they're doing the they've got like, I just happen to have a fork here, where they're doing the thing where you grip it all the way down, and when you go to hit with it, you're not like doing this, you're using your hand more. But then at the end of it, he's gripping it all the way back here and just being like, just like full bore stabbing with it. So I'm like, is that, what is that? But I love the hell out of this too. I'm sorry, Matt, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I mean, they're stabbing each other. At one point, I think it was Luke Williams and Fulton. But Luke just like wraps a rope and starts choking him, and then even ties it to like the turnbuckle and like,
oh yeah.
And I looked at it because it's like at one point Fulton's like hanging down, like he's like choking out, but you could see like his his like right hip is like sitting on one of the ropes, like the middle rope. So he's obviously his weight is on that, so he's not really choking. But visually, it was like that's a really good visual to make it just get over the brutality of this. And it was just fun. Like in terms of like wild brawls, like this is probably what I was hoping for. Like, was there crazier stuff we've seen? Like the Tupelo concession brawl? Like, oh yeah, we've seen crazier stuff than this. But this is like, and I'm sure they had more or better ones, whatever. But if I really wanted to be like,
there's a barbed
the
wire
Sheepherders
cage match, I think, with the two of them.
Okay.
They did a lot of stuff in '86 together.
They did like that. From what I and kind of researching this a little bit, the Sheepherders and the Fantastics was like, I mean, it's not perhaps like Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express level, but they were two teams that apparently like in the '80s like did feud a lot. Like it was
well, because
they were notable for each other's careers.
I think what people don't understand, and it's something I think they're underrated about, but like people don't realize the Fantastics are amazing brawlers. Like, remember Clash of the Champions 1? Like, that insane brawl they had with the Midnight Express?
Yeah.
And I think Cornette even said when it comes to the Midnight Express, he thought the Fantastics were better opponents than the Rock and Roll Express. And I kind of get it because the Rock and Roll Express is carried very heavily by Ricky Morton, who is amazing and is like a world-class talent. And the Fantastics are carried by Tommy Rogers. But the thing is, like, when you're talking about, like, physical capability and, like, who can just do, like, anything and are much more versatile on the physical end and who will, work stiff with you and can, do crazy brawls believably, like, the Fantastics are actually much more versatile physically than the Rock and Rolls. So I get, why...
There's also a smaller skill discrepancy between Rogers and Fulton as opposed to between the Rock and Roll.
Yeah.
Between Morton and Roberts.
And so like they're not as charismatic because they don't have the Morton thing to cut the promos, but like when you watch them they're much more versatile as a team, I think. And I think Tommy Rogers is a very underrated talent.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I took away from watching this that I am always pleased to be reminded of is just how good a seller Bobby Fulton is. Like, Bobby sells so well in this match. Like you mentioned, Matt, like they're doing the hung up thing, but he's handling it properly. And I mean, the two teams elevated each other in this because they complemented each other so well.
Again, to go back to talking about the technical aspect of it, and again, it's probably because I've been watching wrestling now for like 30 something years, and it's like I can obviously watch a match and enjoy it for what it is, but having more knowledge, I will look at things like that. And obviously I never stepped foot in a ring like you have, Shad, so you obviously can grasp it, but I've watched enough where it's like I can kind of maybe sometimes pick out some of those details where it's like, oh, look what he's doing. Like, and in this, it's like he's being choked, but how does he sell it? Like by positioning himself in the turnbuckle where his way to support is he's not in any physical danger of actually being choked, but he's like slumped with this on his neck. His weight is supported. So again, he's not actually choking himself out or being choked out. Yeah. But visually, it looks like I like this. I can't breathe. And it's like technically, it's really selling the drama of the match. Like this crazy brute just put a damn rope around my neck and like almost committed murder on me, and I'm just like laid out. Really fantastic little tidbit that he did that really sells it. Then of course, obviously, it comes back and there's even more violent brawl towards the end. That was only like halfway through the match, but this was just fun. And this, what I was gonna say a minute ago, it's like if I were to show like, hey, they weren't what you saw as the Bushwackers was like nothing of what they were. Like maybe it's like a fraction of what they were capable of or what they were. This is just they just took the goofy aspects and just played the goofy for as a face run, as a comedy act. But if I were to show people like, no, they were actually like violent brawlers, this would be something I would show them. It's like, this is what they're capable of. And just going out there and brutalizing people. Like this was good. Like I feel nowadays like people have been jaded by ECW and like the hardcore crap of like the last like 25 years. Like, and by that I mean like deathmatch garbage.
What was that stupid thing we just saw the other day from? Well, it wasn't. I don't think it was GCW, but there was a gift.
It wasn't actually. I think it was actually like a lucha.
Yeah, show. He had a mask on.
Yeah, it was a luchador. Because I think he had like somebody did like a GoFundMe or something afterward. There was a lights. I guess light tubes were involved, and it was a death match. And there's a move done like he was in the turnbuckle, and some move was done with the light bulb. Light tube was broke, and it lit. You didn't watch it, Shad, but the light tube literally went. My visual thing is like, but God. It went through his arm, like here.
Yuck.
Like it obviously must have missed like the bone, just like the flesh, but literally it was like he impaled himself in the arm with that. And it's
that's
like
gonna get infected too.
Yeah.
Well, well, I mean, light tubes have chemicals, and I understand like I think that they remove a lot of that stuff before, I think. But
no,
I don't.
But,
I mean, you can't entirely like remove the particles from that. So like you worry about getting toxic stuff in your system.
Yeah.
It's dumb.
What was worse? Was that worse or the cricket leg guy?
Oh, to me, cricket leg is worse. Yeah. Way worse. This one was oddly like it wasn't like it was gushing blood.
No, because
it was bad. But I mean,
that's why. So fun dumb bit of first aid knowledge for you is in situations like that with impalings, that's why you don't remove it, because the item is keeping the blood in.
Yes.
So if you've ever taken first aid, like, and they teach you how to dress it, and like an impaling, you dress around said implement.
Yeah, at least maybe do like a tourniquet or something before you would even contemplate doing.
Usually, that's something that you let more trained officials take care of when they arrive. Yeah.
That's what pissed me off. Have you guys seen Cloverfield?
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
So in Cloverfield, the Cloverfield, I got upset at the movie. So they're going to find like the guy's girlfriend or something, and she's like impaled on like a piece of rebar, like in this collapsed apartment,
like through her chest.
Yes, and they pull her off,
through like her clavicle or something.
Yeah. So they pull her off, but then she's running like she's fine. Like 2 minutes later, and it's like that would not happen. She would have probably died from like removing.
She would have probably died. And
yeah,
I actually read something. And this is random, bizarre thought, but that's what we do here. We get on like tangent.
Well, this is not a tangent. We're talking about impalings right now.
Okay. Well, I read something either like because it was something from like historical fiction or like a medieval historical fiction that I read where people were like, or even just movies where it's like, people get shot with arrows and then they're like back up, like still fighting, whatever, like that. And it's and I read this like actually in real life in like in the medieval period when people get shot with arrows. And this is why like artillery, like archery and stuff like that, they were so feared and so valuable in armies, because if you were to get shot with an arrow like in your torso, whatever, like that, even like your shoulder, where it's like maybe not necessarily life threatening, you would be done. Like you would not, the trauma of it and the shock to your system would be so bad that if you got shot in, like, let's say you get shot in like here, and it's not life threatening, except for maybe shock, but you still like, you're going to survive this. Likelihood you would potentially survive this outside of like infection or whatever.
Well, they like to
let me dust myself off and start with my good arm, like start swinging a sword. No, you'd be done.
They like to
maybe
put
like 6 months from now.
A lot of cultures and armies like to like put their arrowheads in like urine or dung beforehand, so like you were going to get an infection from most of that stuff.
Biological warfare.
Yeah, and I mean that's also like one of the that like if you do Roman history, like the invention of like the longbow, where then people could ride a horse and like shoot a bow and arrow, was like
the horse bow.
Yeah, wasn't that essentially how Genghis Khan like basically conquered the world?
Yeah.
Because he had that. He had like mounted riders.
Yeah. Pretty much. But yeah, that was like a massive like invention, was being able to shoot off a horse. But yeah, like, well, the other thing is that the people I don't think necessarily understand. So if like you were in like the medieval times in like a full suit of armor and you got knocked off your horse, you were done because it weighed like hundreds of pounds.
No. If you were like full plate, you could move and that sort of stuff in. Like there are folks historians that will get full plate on and they can do like forward rolls and that sort of stuff. It was a bitch to get on and off, and the impact of getting knocked off the horse would just absolutely batter you. That part, but no, it was not. It was the weight's spread out, so it's not like you're not all carrying it on your shoulders. It's spread out. You can move in it. Your joints are protected with the mail underneath, that sort of stuff. And knight versus knight with armor combat is dirty as shit. Because you are, you're trying to attack through the mail, or you're trying to attack through the visor or something. Like it is a move. You can move really well in it. Like a lot of the grappling the manuals, the martial manuals for that they taught in that time period. There's a lot of grappling involved, especially in armor. Not especially, also in armor.
There's a lot of stuff, like, even going to modern, there's a lot of stuff with guns that, like, drive me nuts when people talk about, like, silencer. It's like, they don't exist. Like, you can make it quieter.
It's not the movies.
No, it's not a movie. Not a movie silencer.
It's like, you can make it quieter, but it's loud as hell. Like, I've shot guns a lot of times, and still that first shot, like, is always traumatizing. But the other one that, like, people don't get is, like, if you wear, like, a Kevlar vest that's bulletproof, like, all that's going to do is keep the bullet from penetrating you. Like, you're still going to take...
It's going to knock you the hell down.
Yeah, like, you're still taking...
Yeah, well, it may not knock you down, but it's going to hurt.
Yeah, you're still taking the kinetic energy of the shot. It's just blunting
People get bad bruises and stuff just from, like, getting hit with paintballs.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it hurts.
And obviously, it's having a bulletproof vest would be different, but still, like a paintball. Even if you're like wearing like a padded clothing, whatever, it hurt, and people will show that it's like bad bruise, whatever, because like the kinetic energy of it.
Yeah. I always have like, I think one time I did it, I had welts all like down my back because someone got me from behind. Like it hurt. Like paintballs hurt.
That's why people wear like eye goggles and stuff so they don't get.
Oh yeah, that's required.
In the face. Yeah, we get blinded potentially.
I mean, folks that are doing paintball on a competitive level are wearing like body armor and a cup. Oh, I about beat somebody's ass one time when I went paintballing because he came around the corner and shot at me, and the pants that I was wearing, the way I was laying, they were tight enough that they would actually ricochet the paintballs back off when they would hit, but the kinetic energy was still there. And he does that. I just put it down. I'm like, out. And he's like, nothing's broken. I say, I'm going to beat your ass. Get out of my face. Like, you just shot me in the testicle with 4 paintballs. Like, I am apparently in a rather vulgar and angry mood tonight. Sorry about
also,
that,
the other thing, like, going back to the silencer thing, like, go do paintballing. It is loud as hell.
Clack, 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 clack. Yeah.
And
now, there's one case where you have a silencer that will be that quiet, but to do that, you have to take an MP5, replace the barrel, and put like a silencer barrel on it. In that case, the bolt is as loud as the shot is, but that's the only time.
Yeah, that's
the only one.
Isn't it also a situation that the silencer essentially degrades with use? So maybe like
most
the first
of them
time
are
you shoot
one.
it,
Most of them are like
soft.
one. Most of them are one use, but like they usually call them suppressors, honestly, because you can make it quieter, but it's still going to be, I mean, it's loud. If you've never shot a gun before, like, for the one thing, I always cringe when people do it and they don't have ear protection. It's like,
you always wear ear pro.
Yeah.
Even if you're shooting .22 long rifle, you still wear ear protection because that's a loud crack.
Because
That's gonna
even when you get like the standard earplugs, it's still loud as fuck. Like
if you are at an indoor range, the recommendation is, because the indoor range is going to keep the sound in, and there's lots of sound going, is you put earplugs in and then you put like over the ear protection on over that.
Well, they have new ones now, Matt, that they're automated, so they will go on when you shoot and then go off so you can still hear people talk. But like I've done it numerous times, and still, like if I go to the range, like getting ready to do that first shot, I'm a nervous little Nelly because I'm like, oh, this is going to be so loud. I need that like first shot or two to be like, okay, I've heard it now, I'm good to go. But like that first shot, even now, I'm always just like, I'm just like clenching, like, oh god, this is going to be so loud.
Yeah.
I haven't had that, but I've gone shooting a lot. You got to protect your ears.
Yeah,
Like,
watch Archer. No Archer is accurate to what happens if you don't have proper ear protection.
Yeah, and that was, I think, with 9mm.
Yeah, 9mm. So, even 22 is loud.
Just in general, I feel like movies and TV shows have ruined people's perception of guns, because oftentimes, like in like an actual like real life situation, like a hostage situation or something horrible like that, and the police arrived. And I know, like, obviously that's a touchy subject, and there people have legitimate complaints about police brutality and how police should be reformed, etc. So I'm not really getting into all that, but some people are basically saying like, well, I don't understand why the cops just didn't shoot the gun out of their hands. It's like,
not possible.
This isn't a movie.
This isn't a movie. Because if you tried to do that, you're going to shoot the hostage right between the eyes, and then people are going to be really mad.
It is not the movies where everyone is a crack shot. Like, that doesn't do that. And there are plenty of times in real life where a cop has been rolled up on someone who maybe they're under the influence of drugs or whatever, and it's like they literally have to empty their clip into someone before they stop moving.
Well, that's because you're supposed to shoot until they stop, and like the thing is, yeah, it can take a lot to make someone stop. Because so if you do CCW training, Matt, one of the first things they tell you about shooting, so if someone's coming at you with a knife, you have to shoot them before 20 feet or they're going to cut you.
Yeah. And
rule, yeah.
People don't, even that, people don't understand like the absolute level of devastation that a bladed weapon can cause to someone.
Oh, there was someone here. There was someone here. There was a fight, and they just nicked the guy once in the neck, and he died in seconds because they got the arterial.
Yeah.
So, okay, this is we are tap dancing on one of my wheelhouses. The worst part about any kind of human combat is that it is highly variable. If you want one end of the spectrum, go look up, God rest his soul, he just passed away. He's a guy named Paul Harrell, Harrell, on YouTube. He did a breakdown of the Miami-Dade shootout, the FBI versus these two bank robbers. And some people look, oh, Miami-Dade, like that guy, they used 9mm and that guy got shot and didn't die. It's like, well, okay, here's the problem. Like, in terms of variable, one of the guys got shot through the arm, this side, through the arm. It went through the arm into the chest and stopped about an inch short of his heart. If his arm hadn't been there, into the heart, done. Like, he's over and done with right then and there. There's a whole bunch of variables that happen in that. And it's not that, like, the FBI was being incompetent. There were a whole bunch of things that came into play. Like, the best shot, like, the guy that was the best shot in the Miami Police Department was there, but he wore glasses, and in the car wreck that preceded the shootout, his glasses got broken. He couldn't. So, knife combat, extremely variable. Firearms, extremely variable. There's a George Ellifritz.
Look at the, because we know a little more about it now. Look at the assassination attempt on Trump. It's because he moved half an inch right before it came that it just caught him. Like
it's also the shooter in that question was a very bad shot.
Well, because people are like when someone like hoisted it was a fake, there were a lot of people like, I'm a professional shooter and I would not let someone like try to intentionally miss me like that.
No,
like
no.
Yeah.
You can't. It's the reason the Biggie Tupac, like the death of Tupac, is like, oh no, Suge got himself grazed in order to cover up for it. It's like, bullshit. That does not work at all.
Too much room for error.
And
way too
you
much room
can't.
for error.
Yeah, there are too many variables at play. There is a reason why
also,
any CCW
like
instructor worth their salt will say, if you have to pull, don't pull. Don't even pull unless you're willing to kill somebody.
Yeah.
And if you pull, mag dump, because you don't know what you're dealing with.
That's why I didn't. So I did the training and all that, and I never carried because I was just like, like if I miss someone and hurt someone else, like I couldn't live with that. Like that's the other thing people don't understand.
Yeah.
So if you miss, like even if you, so let's say someone broke into your house and you miss them. Like, let's say you miss them because you're being a raging dumbass. That's probably going to go out of your house and into another house if you're not careful.
That is why... okay, how can I best phrase this? I did the CCW training, and I do carry because there was a credible concern against my family, and there still is. But I was very particular in my choice of what I carry and what I keep in my house should I need it. Like... the way that my house is laid out, there is a spot that's like, you don't go prowling around looking for them if someone breaks in. You don't do that. But the choice that I made is one that I did a lot of research to say, this is going to be the correct choice given the layout of my home, what I have, and what I'm comfortable with.
Yeah, that was at my old house. Like the new house is really weird. But so at the old house, there was a long hallway coming down to the bedrooms. So my line of demarcation was, if you come into the hallway, I'm going to kill you. If you don't come into the hallway, do whatever the fuck you want, but you come into that hallway, I'm going to shoot you.
Yeah.
That's what my old house defense plan was.
The spot that I have, if you continue the line, yes, that goes towards a neighbor's house. But the things that I have chosen are things that are, shall we say, less amenable to overpenetration. Again, I know I am shilling for a guy that has passed away, but the dude knew his stuff. Paul Harrell, again, did all kinds of testing about what you should or should not use, why you should or should not use it, why you should not trust, like, FUD lore about, it's like, oh, you just rack a shotgun slide, they're going to run. It's like, wow, you just told them exactly where you are and what you have. Let's not do that.
There's an intimidation factor there that might ward some people off, but...
First of all, that's not special to just shotguns. Any weapon that you rack, you work the bolt on, you're going to get the same kind of sound. It's not... Shotguns aren't magical for that reason. And then second,
just
you're telling them where you are.
Don't... So my thing with it is don't warn them if they cross whatever your line is. Just shoot them. Don't give them a chance. Just plug them and
you and there's also it's a study by James Ellifritz that was a study of shootings, because what he did is he took the data from documented police report shootings and ER shootings to verify, like, things that came into ER to emergency rooms. To document, hey, what is it that is the thing? And the biggest thing they find for handguns is above 32 ACP, there's not enough difference in terms of the outcome to really make a huge difference in what you use, although some of them didn't have enough instances to be statistically significant. And then the other part is, like, half of them are psychological stops. Someone gets hit with a round and they stop what they're doing because it's like, oh hell, I've just been shot, as opposed to I'm high on bath salts and you've got to mag dump them. But you don't know what you're dealing with is the problem. And if you've committed to firing, you commit.
Yeah.
And you can't do that. You can't shoot the hand, the leg, something like. The reason everyone is taught you shoot center of mass is because, first of all, that's the big target that you're going to hit. And second, it doesn't move as much, which means you're not going to miss and hit things behind it. And your arms and legs and stuff move.
But this is obviously the most mass.
Well, and the thing, too, is if you shoot them in the arm, there is a really good chance it's going to go right through their arm and hit someone else. But the other thing is, it's not so because of the way a bullet works. You have to hit vital organs because you don't actually bleed that much when you get shot and it goes through because the bullet actually does some cauterizing of the wound. So you got to get vital organs. You're not gonna stop someone very easy.
Yeah.
Or not immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they might go down in 5-10 minutes, but that's not going to do.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Chat. I'm not in that realm, and I don't own a firearm. But I am. I looked it up just now. Like I was semi-aware of like this guy Paul Harrell, only because when he did die, like it kind of was.
Yeah, it's a big deal because
it was like news. So I saw like, oh, this famous gun guy. I'm like, I'm not in that world, so I don't know. And I don't have any. I'm not disparaging that. It's just like it's not in my wheelhouse. So it's like if I'm not into, soccer, it's like if the famous soccer person died, I wouldn't be like, well, that's sad, but I don't really know that. But just because it's not what I'm aware of. But I was aware that he was a big deal because it was like when he passed away, it was something, and I guess pancreatic cancer, which that's one of the worst ones. And people, pancreatic cancer, for those who don't know, like, and I thankfully do not know of anyone who has had that, but pancreatic cancer is one of those things that it's like unfortunately, it's very, very, very low. I don't know if there even is like a long-term survival rate. It's like, it's just if you get caught really early.
You got like a 98% mortality rate with pancreatic cancer.
Might know. What took out Total Biscuit? Was that pancreatic or prostate?
I would need to look
because I wanted to say pancreatic, but I think it was prostate.
Pancreatic is bad just because, but usually when they actually discover it, it's progressed far too late, and that was, I guess, this guy's case where he claims like, oh, it was caught early, but it already metastasized to his bones. So
they thought they caught it earlier than they did, and the hell of it is, it's like, oh, we caught it early, and they didn't catch it early enough. And the other thing that happens is that your pancreas is already a very fragile organ. Like if they're doing surgery and they touch it, they damage it because it's like cellular lace almost. If you get cancer that's attached to that, the cancer breaks off and spreads very, very quickly.
So fun.
Yeah.
Fun bit of house lore for me. So and I mean I think it's what I do just to help. But like, so my guns in their cases have Post-it notes on them if there's a bullet in the chamber, because a couple do from stuff, and I just leave a Post-it note if I know there's a bullet on the chamber that says there is a bullet in the chamber, so that I remember that to be very careful with that gun when I get it, or if someone were to happen upon it, to know there is a bullet in the chamber. So
the thing that, I mean, the proper way is every gun is loaded.
Yeah.
Until you prove that it's not. Every gun is loaded. If I went and grabbed my CCW one right now, I know full well what state it's in, and I would still drop the magazine and check the chamber.
Yeah, I would too.
Because it doesn't matter.
As I've said, I don't own a firearm, and I don't disparage people who are into that. It's just, I wasn't that way growing up. Like, we didn't go hunting when I was a kid or anything like that. So it's not like what I was exposed to or whatever. And I have two small kids, so it's like, yeah, maybe one day, like, I'd get a firearm because it makes sense for protection, but I'm not like chomping at the bit to get one necessarily. But I feel like I have an appropriate attitude in the sense that, not that I have like an oppressive fear of fire, it's like, but I feel like I would have that respect where it's like, this is not a toy. And I don't view it as a toy.
You got to get it.
I would have it, even if I know it's like completely unloaded. Shad, I would have that attitude where it's like, I'm gonna act like this is loaded. So and it's dangerous.
My 9mm, I lost
utmost respect.
I lost the key to
I'm not gonna treat it as this.
I lost the key to the. So I have a big safe at this house, but at the old house I had like mini safes for them that I had like stuck to the ground. But so in the move, I lost the key to the 9mm, so I can't get the 9mm out because it's stuck in its little mini safe.
Well, you can drill that out, but
I know
the
it's a pain in the butt, and I spent good money on it. It's a nice little.
yeah, um,
I don't know where the fob is that like, because it's like a key/fob reader, but I don't know where the fob is. Either.
Yeah. So okay, not we've really digressed from where we were, but
we've never done
thing
gun
I will
talk
say,
on here before though, so it's new ground.
One thing I will say is I firmly believe that no matter what your opinion on guns is, you should still know enough that when you find one, you should have enough knowledge to make it safe.
Yeah.
You should have enough knowledge to know how to make sure the chamber is clear, no matter what your opinion about them is. And because then that way it's like, okay, I found this, magazine's out, I checked the chamber is empty, okay, now I don't have to worry about what happens with it. It doesn't, I don't care what your opinion on them is. The fact is, they're in America, they're here, they're not going anywhere. That's just what the rule is. And if you stumble across one at some point, you should know how to handle it safely and make it safe. But, God, getting some people on that, even on board that far, is pulling teeth.
Anyone's ever said, hey, I'm thinking about getting a gun, I always say, okay, so the first thing you're going to do before you even get the gun is go take the CCW class, because they have an 8-hour part of that is safety, maintenance, and general guidelines to owning a gun. So go take that first, so you know what you're doing before you get the gun.
It is have someone teach you about it that knows what the hell they're talking about, not just the blowhard guy that you know. Like, have someone you trust teach you about it, and work from there is my
also
opinion on it.
Clean your damn gun.
Yeah, I have one that the son of a bitch is. How can I best? It is it's an excellent little target pistol, but in my younger days, I did not know how to clean it properly, so I finally took it apart to clean it. And by the way, it is a bitch to do.
Hey, you think that's bad? I have a high 0.9 millimeter, and the top does not come off, so you have to.
Oh yeah, I know.
You have to.
People look at high points as people look at high points as low tier trash, but the thing is, high points are cheap and they're big and they're clunky, but they work.
Also, well, I think a high point's a good beginner one because they're big and clunky, but they're heavy, so the recoil on them is a little less because the gun's a little heavier. So I think that's really good. Good learner.
It dampens your recoil a lot.
Yeah.
But if you want to get into it, find someone that you trust that will teach you how to do it properly. And you might want to start with a like a 22, just so you get used to what the concept of it is and develop good habits.
And the other thing is, the one thing they won't tell you is if you shoot a lot, it's gonna beat the ever-loving crap out of your hand.
It can.
It gets the way my hand's designed, and the way like it holds a gun, like it beats on a bone in my thumb, and it just hurts after a while for me.
That depends on the weapon in choice. Like mine, I don't have that issue, but my wife's, the way the slide works on it, like I can't use hers. Hers would beat my hand to death, but it fits hers great. Mine does not. I could probably shoot it all day without an issue, but you got to find the thing that's right for you. That's the hell of it.
I have a 22. The 22, it's the wrong word, but the 22 is like my toy one. That's to go to the range and I can shoot. It doesn't recoil a lot. It's not going to beat me up. It's not loud. It's just an easy one to use. That's kind of my target.
Yeah, I've got targets. I've got defense ones. I've got bigger stuff. It's part of it is that it's just fun and I like doing it. And the other part of it is I don't have a weapon. I do not own a weapon that does not have a specific purpose. I'm not stockpiling, if that makes sense.
And I think a high point, if you want a home defense gun, I would highly recommend a high point, because
I would actually even recommend a high point 995. That's a 9mm carbine high point, because everybody, it's just human nature. You're going to shoot something that is like a rifle better than you're going to shoot a pistol.
Yeah.
And it's without going down the rabbit hole, you're going to, if you decide that you want one to have at home because you want to protect yourself, then that's a better choice, because some folks get hung up on the idea, oh, there's got to be a big round, it's got 45 caliber, won 2 world wars, and it's like lost Vietnam. You don't
shoot what you can handle. That's rule number 1 that I learned is you shoot what you can handle. That means do not go buy a 45 Magnum. That means if you can shoot a
44 Magnum,
yes,
45 Magnum.
Sorry, it's late. No, but that means don't go get a 44 Magnum because you probably can't handle it. Go get like a 9mm, because everyone can handle a 9mm, and it's gonna stop just as good as the Magnum's gonna stop.
Just the one that you are willing to use is leagues better than the one that you're not. So and you know what? I'm not going to get into it. There's way too deep a rabbit hole for my opinion on this, and I'm not even like, part of the reason that I gave Paul Harrell such credit was, number one, he was not only former military, he was former like firearms trainer for the military in 2 branches. He would demonstrate everything about what he was doing with it and say, this is what I'm saying, this is why, but it's ultimately your choice if you're okay with that or not. So there are worse ways to spend time going through his YouTube channel, which is just his name. But we'll get off that wagon, because that's not why people don't tune into a wrestling podcast for gun talk.
I'm just going to support what Chad said, though. Educate yourself regardless, because I will say this. The safest people to be around for gun safety and the people least likely to shoot you are CCW owners.
They have to be.
Yeah.
The mindset behind concealed carry, I know some states do, they have constitutional carry, so
Ohio
you don't have to, but
Ohio does.
I'd say do it anyway, because it shows that you're being responsible and taking it seriously. The mindset, if you come in with the mindset of, when do I get to shoot somebody? Get out.
Yeah.
The mindset is, am I going to have to?
They'll kick you out of a CCW if you do that. Ohio switched to constitutional.
And they won't refund your money either.
Yeah, Ohio switched to constitutional. I'm not a fan of it, because I think people should be more educated to have to carry.
I think it's more responsible to be that, and that's why I did. But the thought process, the best way someone put it to me is, if you are going to be carrying that with you, then any confrontation you get into in public, you have to bitch out on until you have no other choice.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's, if you're going to carry a weapon that has that kind of efficiency and magnitude to it, this is not something to take lightly, and it's not something to wave around in like a road rage incident.
Yeah, and they really, why are you going to call cash out like that?
I'm not, actually, because there is no way I believe
that fell
what
apart.
happened actually happened.
But
I don't understand how it got as far as arraignment, because it was just one guy saying, oh, it was this wrestler guy in this car, and he was waving a black gun around. It's like, dude, what the hell?
Well, how was this guy driving and he saw everything that he saw? That's where I always was a little weird on that one. Is like, he has oddly specific details for they were like driving on the highway. Like, his initial statement didn't line up either, because I got over to the right to let him pass me, and he passed me on the right. I'm like, the hell is, you said you got over on the shoulder to let him by, and he passed you on the right. Oh, nothing about that added up.
Was he driving in the dirt to your right of the shoulder?
But it was supposed to be on a highway, so there's going to be, like, guardrails. There's not that much space. I'm shocked how it got as far as it did. That's the thing that gets me.
I always was waiting for more, but like the logistics of it was always really weird to me.
There was like no more to have. It got dropped because it was like.
I was just saying, like the logistics right away. I was having like red flags. I was like, this, like, how did he see all this while he's driving?
It didn't pass a smell.
And where were these other where were other drivers that would have obviously seen?
It's like, I took a picture. Could it have been that Cash was driving like a dick? Sure. And you took a picture of that. And then you were like, oh, you took a picture of it. You said it was him. And they're like, oh, but I really want to get him in trouble. Oh, he waved a gun at me. That's what I'll say. Like, the account does not pass the smell test. It just doesn't make sense. Anyway.
So did this like round of footage change your opinion of the Sheepherders as workers?
The Bushwackers.
Even knowing them, like even knowing that this like was them before the WWF, so that you never had seen them at your best. Like, did this, like, for me, like I'd seen some of this stuff before, but like really breaking it down, like I think like Shad and I talked about it a bit. Just the little things they do and how they approach like being heels, like their lack of ego. There's just a lot of little things they do that I think are really terrific.
It did. It changed my opinion because I had not seen any of their pre-WWF work. I'd always heard like, oh, they're completely different. They're actually like a violent, brawling tag team. It had a lot of like actual notoriety as that. I don't know what like a modern day equivalent is, but it's almost like if there was a worker who got signed to WWE or AEW and they're just like comedy gimmick. Like what, I mean, I don't know. This isn't a great example, but let's say like a comedy gimmick and he hasn't been on AEW for a long time, but like let's say Danhausen, comedy, kind of like more comedy, like meme wrestler type stuff. But what if it's like, oh yeah, like when he was on the Indies, he was like a violent brawler. And it's like, what? Like you'd have to watch it to see it, but again, not the best example, but I had only seen the Bushwackers, and they were obviously a comedy act, and I didn't necessarily care for them. Like they're fine, but it was like, to me, no offense, and I understand like the wisdom again of signing and having a long career as an adult long-term wrestling fan, I could appreciate. It's like, oh, this is clever. Like you cashed out for like a long time and had a good kind of into your career of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of actually like if I was going to a show and it was a Bushwhacker match, I'm like, this is the bathroom break. Sorry guys, gonna go hit the head, come back, and that would have been how I viewed them. And it was how I viewed them. It's like comedy act, okay, whatever. But seeing them, like the reputation I had heard, seeing this, and I feel like it's just a snapshot, I actually do have a better appreciation for them. I thought that, again, I really, really enjoyed this Sheepherders Fantastics match. I thought like, yeah, this is like, when I heard the Sheepherders were violent brawlers, like this is what I was hoping for, and this is exactly what I wanted. The other matches, they weren't like the best matches I've seen, but like you guys just said, I did walk away with an appreciation of this where it's like the Sheepherders were limited in terms of like, you're not going to get like a 4 or 5 star technical classic with them, but they were perfectly fine, perfectly good, like old school heel, more the brawling style, but old school heel tag team where they would do like the tropes of like cheating behind the ref's back or doing these little things like, and their selling was good, their work was generally very competent, they had good like ring presence, good ring like awareness, did like some of the little things to work the crowd, like they were just really competent, really good. So and if anything, because I think he probably pulled this, someone posted on Twitter like a long thread of like,
yeah, that's where I pulled all these from.
Yeah, like a lot of matches. I should probably like, if I haven't on Twitter, like retweet it or whatever. I should probably do that because it was really a really like long, extensive list of stuff. And if anything, this kind of made me want to actually look at more of the matches from that list to see some of their other stuff because it did kind of meet my expectations of like I'd heard they were a good tag team, a violent, brawling tag team versus like the comedy bushwhacker gimmick. And this did kind of meet those expectations and made me get a better appreciation for them. You know, I mean, they were smart in doing what they did, signing with the WWF, but also it's like, they were actually pretty good. I would have like really enjoyed them as a Sheepherders back in the day. If this was like contemporaneous, it's like a really fun, like like the current day is like the Lucha Brothers are going to go with the WWE. That's likely happening. In any given moment, they're going to be the WWE. And it's like, what if they go to the WWE and they're just a comedy tag team for the next like 5 years? It's like, well, they're getting paid, good for them, but I wouldn't care about their matches really if that's what they did. It's like they're going to have a 3-minute comedy match where they're like, you know, acting the fool against I don't know, whatever the other Latin tag team is there, because that's all Triple H books. You know,
it's the LWO guys or whatever.
The ethnics have to face the other ethnics of the same ethnic group. But if that was like I would be like sad. But it's like, what? And if I was a young fan, I'd be like, they're Lucha Brothers. They're a great comedy tag team. But I've not known everything like they did before. But obviously the Lucha Brothers were a different level than the Bushwhacker Sheepherders were. But it did make me appreciate them. I thought this was what I had hoped for in that they were a good tag team before the Bushwhackers comedy stuff. And I could appreciate the wisdom of being Bushwhackers, but still.
So, all right, I'm going to say this in a contentious way intentionally. It did not change my opinion of the Bushwhackers, but I did not have an opinion of the Sheepherders prior because all I had done is hear stuff. I hadn't seen any of their stuff. So I have an appreciation for the Sheepherders now. I mean, and the Bushwhackers are the same guys doing a similar gimmick, but they're a different team, is the way I look at it. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, like we said, you know, get paid, you know, take it easy so you're not killing yourself. And so, you know, more power to these guys. They're smart, capable, and they figured out the way to have their gimmick and get work reliably. More power to them.
Okay, well, that's been the 4Corners podcast. I don't know what we're doing next week yet. We hadn't talked about it, and this episode is a little chaotic. If you're going to watch this later, I'll see how it sounds and try and get that part cut out with no audio. But this has been the 4Corners podcast. We've been in 3 corners, and you're in the 4th because Craigbot doesn't count. But that has been this episode. Thank you for joining us as always, and we will catch you next time.